Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Columbia. I'd like to give my big man perspective on weak leadership. I've been in the corporate world for about 11 years now, I think almost 12. And I've had a lot of great mentors, a lot of great managers, and terrible managers. And I've seen other terrible managers. I don't know if you noticed this, especially those in the corporate world, but a lot of people, I won't say a lot, there's a good chunk of them that get promoted because they're good mechanically, tactically at their job. But it's not so much a consideration if they're a good leader, they're a good manager, let alone great. And I'm actually going to go off script by saying this for the leaders, managers out there. Here's an easy litmus test. Is your team willing to run through a wall for you, figuratively? Is your team willing to put in the extra hours to get it done? If the answer is no, there's a huge chance you suck at your job, at being a leader. You're uninspired. You don't make someone want to work hard for you. You've probably inspired people to clock in, clock out, a nice, smooth, round 7.5, 8 hours, zero extra effort, because you've probably slept on promoting them. You're probably extremely impassionate. You're probably only looking out for number one. You, my friend, are a weak leader. And I may actually describe you here in a minute. For everyone else out there, if you can't tell, do the opposite. You want to be inspiring. You want to get it to where people run through a wall for you. You want to have it to where you have a high performing team that you set the direction and they can make that rocket ship shoot for the stars, and if they miss the star, land on the moon. And I'm way off script, by the way. I have some nice bullet points. You guys got me going. Because it's just, and I could talk about this for hours, but another sign, a sign of weak leadership is someone who doesn't level set with their team on a personal level. You're all about business. You're not interested in a person's life. You have no personality. You're not making them laugh. You're not self-deprecating. You have to have servant leadership. I don't know how many people have told me, I don't know what servant leadership is. I've never heard of that before. Yeah, because you suck at being a manager. That's why. Servant leadership is to put everyone else above you. You're Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. You're helpful to other people. You put everyone else above you. Okay, what can you do for the team, not what can they do for you? This stuff is self-evident, but you would be surprised at how many people fail at self-evident concepts because they're greedy, they're all about themselves, they're uninspired, they have no personality, it's all about work. You don't want to ask about their spouse, you don't want to ask about their kids, you don't want to spend the 5 minutes of your super busy day in your ivory tower to learn about your people. What do they like, what do they don't like, what are their career interests. You're not going to put in the effort, put in the extra work to get that person promoted. It's a terrible manager. It's a terrible leader. And you want to talk about pandemics. There's a pandemic of weak leadership. So let me actually get in my notes here. Because I've already said a few things, what makes a bad manager, what makes a good manager. And that's the interesting too, right? Another concept people don't understand is good and great. Average, good, and great. You want to become great. Not just good, but be great. Anyways, first note I have here is a little or complete lack of skill in the actual technical wheelhouse that you're in. I will tell you guys a personal anecdote. I had a manager that was new to the business, to the work, and I must have lasted 4 months with him. I ended up quitting, which, by the way, he was out on vacation, so couldn't call him. So I sent him a little message on Slack. I, such and such, let you know that I am going to be resigning. Talk about sign of a weak leader. You know what his illustrious response to me was? One word, 2 letters. Okay. Wow. You're really inspiring, aren't you? You can really make someone run through a wall for you. And on top of that, this individual had zero clue about the business. I wish I was kidding. I wish I was lying. I wish I was making this up for YouTube or whatever. I know it's nonsensical. I hear you. I can hear you from the screen. I know you think I'm lying. I know you think I'm telling a story. 100% true. 100% true. A lady from Amazon who quit shortly after to go back to Amazon to be a senior manager there, hired him to be our senior manager. Zero clue about the business. Zero ability to inspire and lead. And when I told him, you know what? Thank you for the opportunity, what opportunity he gave me. I'm moving on. He says, okay. Not a, hey, let me call you, let me say congratulations, da-da-da. Just okay. And then the round out the story, when I got closer and closer to the day, because I had some paternity time. Because I'm such a helpful individual, such a champ at my work. I was spacing out my paternity leave. Can you believe that? Instead of just saying, nope, don't bother me, I was just spacing it out. After he said that, I said, you know what? Peace. I'm taking the rest of my paternity. Goodbye. I'll take the next couple of weeks with my paternity, whatever. I was ready for them to say your employment's over or whatever. No problem. Again, no reaching out, hey, Columbia, just want to say thank you and thank you for what you've taught me, because I had to teach them, right? Again, zero clue about the business. Hey, thank you, yada, 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 good luck, wherever you're going next, I wish you well, blah, 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 blah. Nothing. It was all about, well, what about the transition plan? Mind you, I've already trained the individual who would be filling in my shoes. Well, what about the transition? Well, what about this? What about that? I even remember I said something to him like, well, great time for you to learn. Something like that. But either way, you got to have some type of skill in your wheelhouse. And if you don't, you need to learn. And again, you need to have some type of leadership abilities. And not say okay when one of your team members wants to move on and up to bigger and better things. Another sign of massively weak leadership is the leader not being clear and lacking context in direction. I don't know how many times I've seen leaders, even good ones, just not be clear. Like you talk a lot. I know your whole day is about meetings. You say a lot, but you're not saying much. Like, okay, slow down, succinctly, in 1 or 2 sentences, say what we're doing. Okay, I want to do this, and we're going to achieve it, blah, 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 and I want to start it by X. For those in the corporate world, it's quite interesting how many people don't do that. It's a lot of blah, blah. It's 30 minutes of blah, 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 blah. Okay, shh. At the end, like a 12-year-old, 1 or 2 sentences, succinctly, what are we doing? Okay, cool. A lot of people get lost in the sauce because their job is having meetings all day, every day. You know what I mean? It's great. I get it. You're very smart. That's where you need to be. And I'm not saying that sarcastically, but, got to summarize that a little bit. Another massive sign is when someone's extremely emotional. Extremely emotional, and especially on this note, when mistakes are made. when your team's doing mistakes, number one, that's a teachable moment. Let's be clear. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, I understand it could be in bad situations, but that's a teachable moment. But when it's hitting the fan, when stuff is going wrong, people are looking to you to be the center point of attention. Calm everyone down around you. Be the motherfucking leader that you're supposed to be. Don't be emotional. Keep it calm. Keep it under control. Take stock of your situation. Calm everyone else down. If someone, is sweating a little bit or losing it, okay, let it out. Now relax. Don't say stuff you're going to regret. Okay? Focus on this. You fix this, that. I'm going to help you with there. Any questions, we can have a hotline, blah, blah, blah. We'll get it right. Guys, we'll get it right. Sometimes mistakes happen. Sometimes they punch back. No problem. A huge sign of weak leadership is when, instead of getting that calming, centered, directional presence, oh, blah, 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 oh my God, da, 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 we're so effed. Weak. Imagine having that on the front lines during a war. You're all dead. You're all dead. Another huge sign of it is not allowing your team to fail fast. Kind of piggybacking what I'm just saying. Allowing your group to fail fast, to learn and make mistakes, to adapt, to iterate, and then start, working on that finished product, that more well-honed, well-ironed out finished product. That's another sign of weak leadership. Well, we can't have any mistakes. It has to be perfect. Weak. Iteration stupid. Weak. Right? That's someone who is fearful for their job. That's someone who has ego, fearful of damaging their brand, their ego. This is probably the same person who writes these massive posts on LinkedIn that no one wants to read because they're unimportant to anyone besides your mom and their spouse. It's weak. It's weak. Failure is one of the biggest and best teachers you can have. Forget about your ego. Fail fast, learn, pick yourself up, brush off, keep adapting, keep failing, keep figuring it out, boom, and you're going to have a wonderful output. And oh, by the way, the people who are on your team that have been doing it, they're learning. And that's another, when you're uncomfortable in a corporate environment, in that sense, in the right situation, when you're uncomfortable like that, you're getting your butt kicked a little bit, you got to adjust, you got to do this, you got to do that. You're learning so much. You're learning so much. You're learning about people around you, learning about that process, you're learning about, how to do this report, you're learning about how to put it together, you're learning about the development cycle, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much stuff you can glean from that. And the last thing I'll end, because I think this is actually a pretty long video now, the last thing I'll add is a weak manager does not develop their team at all, in a sense that, hey, Johnny, Mary, this is something I really want you to work on. Here's examples of how I did it. Here's examples of my struggle, right? Not only focusing on growth areas in a positive way, but not giving the team examples of their own struggle, because they have to look perfect. That's what I was saying earlier in the video, that they're not self-deprecating. They don't make fun of themselves. They don't share times that they got their butt kicked, because that's also something too that you can learn from massively. Imagine, I want you guys, especially those in the corporate world, imagine if your manager just stopped for 5 minutes and say, you know what, guys, blah, 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 blah. Here's an example when this happened to me. This is what I did. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine how much more talented teams would be if managers actually coached? Not just, oh, well, you did the presentation wrong. Poking holes. That's lazy. That is so intellectually lazy. You're so weak. Okay, well, why don't you show me how it's done? Right? That's having the skill. B, sharing times that you got your butt kicked. How did you address it? C, giving context to direction. You know, we should adjust on this because here's some strategic context, here's this, here's that, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? You catch my drift? Can you imagine how much better teams would be if that occurred? But usually it doesn't. It's usually top down. Usually when you're getting feedback from your manager, it's something like that. Your presentation should have been done better. Da, 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 da. Okay. And you should have never been promoted to be a manager because you're awful. You should look. You know what? It's almost like it should be a prerequisite for people to coach like a little league sports team, you know, before they become a manager. Something like that. I don't know. Either way, for all the 2 people that are going to watch this, I hope you glean something interesting from this. And really, you know, besides calling all this out, for those that might be younger in their career, all joking aside, for those that might be younger in their career, with all this said, when you see some of this stuff, number one, like, recognize it. Like, oh, wow, okay. Big man Columbia mentioned this to me. He been told me. Look at it. Watch it. It's like seeing like an animal in a zoo. Witness it. Might even be happening to you. And realize the negative consequences that are occurring with it and learn from it. It's like failure in a sense. And learning and seeing bad things. You learn from it by realizing that's not what I'm going to do when I'm finally at that level. Like that terrible manager I had, the story I was telling earlier. That was such an awful experience. I legit promised myself I would never be like that. I would never be like that, ever. Again, because you look at something so terrible, and you recognize it, and you say, wow, I'm almost appreciative that I witnessed that, comprehended it, so I can never do that myself. Because that's awful. Either way, guys, thank you for watching. For the 1 or 2 out there, I hope this helped. I hope that you gleaned something. See you around.